I'm gonna start the recording. Good morning again, grade 10. We are still in the activity part, or the discussion part rather, of module 2, weeks 5 to 8. Okay. Okay, upon checking on the activities, I only see few, I think 3 students. Are we all 3 in the online class or in the answering in the LMS? Grade 10?
4, sir, I think.
MD,
Oh, yeah.
Dimitri, and
Reina.
Holly. Okay, so Reina is not here. 4. Correct, MD? Milden? Okay,
Yes,
it's
sir.
3. Reina is coming. Right? But we need to move forward with the activities simply because we're running out of time. And the next topic is fast approaching. The next module, which is module 1, weeks 1 to 4, for Q2 or second quarter. So we need to move forward as we can, right? So what I want you to do now, Reina, please work with your activity 1, 2, and 3. No, activity 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
2, 3, and 4, because upon checking, only MD, Dimitri, and Holly is present here or did their activity, right? 2, 3, and 4. Okay, because your activity number 4 is the activity for today. Okay.
Yeah.
What I want you to do now is I want you to do activity number 4, which is comparing and contrasting. Okay. I'll give you time to do that. But for anything else, we will be discussing few of the lesson before I end this Zoom meeting. Right? The continuation of the lesson.
Okay.
We are still in symbiotic relationship, I think. Mutualistic relationship. Okay. Mutualism. This is the type of interaction and relationship benefits both partners. So meaning to say that the organism benefits to other organism, vice versa. So they are benefited with each other. Just like what we had an example last meeting, we have the flower and the bee. Okay, the bee gets the nectar from flower, and of course when they step on the flower, they actually, or the bees actually gather some pollen grains and pollination happens because they transfer from one flower to another. So they are actually benefited with each other. Okay. This form of interaction plays a key role in ecology. The example is between the mutualistic relationship between legumes and nitrogen fixing bacteria. When you say legumes and nitrogen fixing bacteria, legumes, okay, needs the nitrogen fixing bacteria, okay, in order to convert nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites. That enables the plant to use it in their metabolic processes. Okay. The nitrogen fixing bacteria needs the legumes because they need to attach themselves, okay, in the roots of these plants in order also to survive. They need not to be exposed. Mutualistic relationship can be taught in a form of biological barter in which species trade their resources. Okay, some organisms that show this form of relationship are auxiliaries, clownfish that dwell among tentacles of sea anemones. The one that I'm telling you last meeting, that sea anemones and your clownfish or your Finding Nemo is actually one. What? They actually have a mutualistic relationship. They benefited with each other. Okay. And the relationship between giraffes and African oxpeckers or thick birds. Okay. The giraffes and the oxpeckers or thick birds benefited with each other. Sure, how? Okay. The thick birds ate the ticks in the giraffes. Okay, and the giraffe also benefited on it. Okay, so they eaten the parasites living in the giraffe's back. At the same time, it eases the pain in the giraffe's part. So this is a mutualistic relationship. Okay, the tick birds eat the ticks and the mites that could get on the giraffes. If these parasites are not dealt with, giraffes can get really sick and eventually die. Tick birds control the growth and number of parasites as they consume the ticks and mites found in the giraffe's skin. So this is a mutualistic relationship. The giraffe benefited on it, and the tick birds also, of course, because these are sources of food, benefited on it. The complex structure of symbiotic relationship among species highlights an important point about communities in ecosystem. Okay, such structure is highly dependent on the diverse web, okay, of species and relationships and the diverse connection between organisms. Disturbances, take note, can affect such relationships if there are some disturbances in the ecosystem. Carrying capacity, what can we contain? Okay, carrying capacity is a biological species of a biological species in a given environment is the maximum size of species that the given environment can contain and sustain. Okay, it is not unlimited. It is only limited. Therefore, indefinitely, considering the limited natural resources available in a given environment. Okay, naturally, the increase and decrease of population is dependent on the birth rates and death rates. Okay? This results in carrying capacity being defined as the number of individuals an environment can support without significant negative impact to the given organism or to the impact to the given organism and its environment. So meaning to say that there is a maximum, okay? There is a maximum capacity of a particular environment, given the size also of the population and diversity of organisms. Typically, if an environment is below its carrying capacity, take note, the population will tend to increase. Again, if an environment is below its below its carrying capacity, the population will tend to increase. In contrast, if the environment is above its carrying capacity, the population will decrease. The regulating factor is a concept that keeps the population size and equilibrium. It should be remembered, however, that the carrying capacity of an environment can vary depending on the species involved and may be subject to change over time due to a number of factors such as availability of food, okay, the needs, okay, supply of water, living space, and environmental conditions. Are you still with me? Please turn on your camera.
Yeah.
Right? Please ask questions if you have. Okay. Human population growth, how it threatens biodiversity. How can actually threat biodiversity? Due to the continuous growth of human population, the environment is constantly altered in order to meet our needs. Just like we are actually destroying some trees, we're actually destroying some forests in order to create houses. So those are just few, okay? Throughout the biosphere, human activities have continued to disrupt the trophic structures or trophic structure, chemical cycling, energy flow, and the natural balance, things that every species depend on. Okay? In recent estimates, more damage has been done to the environment has triggered a rapid pace of pushing more species towards extinction. This is the reason also why some of the animals become extinct. Why? Why do you think so? Number one, their natural habitat is being destroyed. Okay. Number two, they are being hunted as a source of food, a source of income. Okay. Biodiversity has three major levels: the ecosystem diversity, the genetic diversity, and the species diversity. Okay. When you're talking about genetic diversity, it is between and within populations of species is the raw ingredient that allows organisms to adapt to the environment. The more diverse its genetic information, its genes, the more that it can adapt to certain environment. It causes microevolution to take place. If local populations are lost and individual in the species decline, genetic resources also decline. Okay, severe reduction of genetic material. Okay, again, severe reduction of genetic material and variability threatens the survival of any species because they cannot actually adapt to that certain environment. The genetic material for adaptation is being removed or being reduced. Okay, just like what is happening now. A lot of species of animals become extinct because they didn't actually survive due to that they cannot evolve, they cannot actually what? They cannot actually adapt to certain changes of the environment. Just like, sure, how about what are those examples of these species of animals? One good example is the freshwater turtle, the red-eared, the Philippine red-eared freshwater turtles. They cannot adapt to certain changes of the environment. They're living on the ponds. They're living on areas which is has lower temperatures. But you know, in those areas, they're fed up with a lot of garbages and they're fed up with heat, so they cannot actually survive. And of course, human activities. Humans continue to hunt. Okay, red-eared turtles. Have you seen a red-eared turtle? You didn't see yet? Okay, red-eared turtle. These are turtles, freshwater turtle, that has red in their ears. Actually, those are not their ears, okay? Those are not their ears, but they're located in the ear area of the head. If this is the head, the red is in here. You'll be seeing it just more like a wound, but it is not a wound, okay? It is a marking. We call them freshwater Philippine red-eared freshwater turtles. And they are extinct already. Humans keep on hunting them because they're actually good pets. It's the reason behind. Species diversity describes the variety of species in an ecosystem or throughout the biosphere. Several species have already been recorded as endangered or at risk of extinction, just like your Philippine eagle. Okay, they're considered as red flagged. Sure. What do you mean by red flagged? Meaning to say that they are nearly to extinct. That is the reason why we have conservatory for the Philippine eagle. Okay, have you heard about the Philippine Eagle Foundation? Okay, they are actually the one concerned on preserving the Philippine eagle. What else? How about the tarsier in Bohol? Okay, the tarsier also is red flagged due to its
Extinction.
yes, they are still they exist, but they're nearly to extinct. Red-eared turtles still exist. In fact, I have seen one just few days ago. I have seen one, and she actually make it as a pet. But to tell you honestly, talking about getting them as a pet, you need to know also the need of that particular animal. What are their natural habitat? Of course, you cannot give all of those because those are naturally gained. But otherwise, you can actually give something that is in their habitat. Okay. Again, before you get some pets, okay, you need to research more on their habitats. How do they live, and what are the temperature needed by their body? Is this a cold-blooded animal? Is this a warm-blooded animal? Their sources of food, the nutrition, and how do they adapt to certain environment. Remember that adaptation is the key for survival. If they cannot adapt to that environment that you are giving them, they will tend to die, of course. If they need also companion, okay, some of the animals needs companion. Okay, if you will not put a companion to them, they will eventually die. Just like one, your what? What are the animals that needs companion? Lovebirds. It needs companion. What else? Dogs. Correct. It needs companion. What else? There are a lot of animals that needs companion.
Cat.
Cat. Yes. If you're going to isolate them, they will eventually die. Because they have also emotions. What else? Your rabbits. It needs companion. If you have a rabbit, you need to put in the ratio there is 1:2. One male is to two females. And that's the ratio for rabbits. Right. Let's move forward. A good example is the Philippine eagle, whose habitat is slowly shrinking due to human development. See, so we are actually destroying nature. Ecosystem diversity is the final component of biological diversity. Okay, because of the interconnected relationship and network that one community has, an extinction of one species has a rippling effect, meaning a domino effect through the entire ecosystem. Okay, so if there is a problem or if we have an extinction with a particular organism, tendency is there is a domino effect. It will affect the other organism also because they are interconnected. Okay, they have actually connection. Okay, this effect can have a negative impact in the overall richness of species in the ecosystem. Not only are the species affected, but the nutrients and the energy flow. Remember, the energy flow within an ecosystem is also disrupted. Okay. One must understand that biodiversity is essential to human welfare. All organisms that live off and thrive on Earth should be protected because humans depend on the other species to provide food. We cannot actually create our own food. We cannot actually create oxygen. Okay, provide food, oxygen, clothing. Our clothes came from plants also. These are fibers. Okay, clothing, shelter, and many other necessities. These are from other organism. It is not ours. Okay, like for example, your water is a natural formation or a natural compound created when there is a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, but we cannot create oxygen. Sure, how about oxygen? It is natural. Yes, it's natural. But the problem there, it is limited. We don't have an unlimited supply of oxygen. Okay, plants need to create oxygen for us. You know, that's a byproduct of photosynthesis. Unfortunately, the changes that threaten biodiversity are caused by large-scale alterations in the biosphere produced by human population. Meaning to say, the more population, the bigger the population is, the more destruction the human can actually create. We are creating it or we are destroying it for profit purpose, for housing, okay, for our own needs. Growing population and its consequences. Let's take a look at the growing population and what could be the possible consequences of this population growth. The growing population has demanded, okay, efficiency in everything. Human alterations have single-handedly posed the great threat to our biosphere. Take note that the only place on Earth that life exists is in the biosphere. Okay? Agriculture, urban development, mining, forestry, and overall environmental pollution have brought massive devastation and fragmentation of habitats. See? So we are actually destroying their habitats. Once the habitat is destroyed, tendency is there is no place for these animals to live. And once there is no place for these animals to live, they will eventually die. Number one, starvation, or they are hunted by us. For again, for food, or for money, okay, for profit purpose. Human altered environment have caused deforestation in rainforests. Okay, rainforests. If you're going to look at the rainforest, it has a diverse, okay, organisms living there. Okay, productive aquatic habitats and prime wetlands have been converted to residential developments. Diba? If you're going to look at the residential developments now, have you seen? They are living in the mountains. Why is that so? Sure, I have seen a house, a village on top of the mountain. How can that be possible? So these are what? The human altered environments. They change, okay? They remove. How about the animals and the other organisms that are living there? Where do they go? That's the big question, correct? The decline of marine habitat is severe, especially those near the reefs and the coastal areas. We tend to extract some of the coral reefs. And take note, these coral reefs has a lot of organisms living there. And a lot of fish also rely on these coral reefs. Do you know how important the coral reefs are? And do you know how many millions of years can they actually build? Okay, we cannot actually build a coral reef just few months. No, we cannot do that. These are animals. Okay, the animals living there are called polyps. These polyps creates their shields or creates their protection. Okay, that is why they can actually create some what calcium-based structures which protects them, and it is also one of the what one that controls, okay, the zooplanktons, because that is their food. Okay, let's move forward. You see, if you're going to talk about ecology, this is really a good topic because you can actually relate to this. You are living in an ecosystem. We are part of that particular ecosystem. All you have to do is to think about, okay, think about the possibilities. Think about what is happening now. Okay, environmental pollution contributes to the threat on biodiversity. The release of pollutants into the environment can harm the biosphere at the local, regional, and global levels. Oil spills and dumping of garbage in bodies of water threaten marine life and other organisms. Acid rain harms lakes and forests, even though nitrogen and sulfur pollutants were released miles away. Remember that acid rains, it can actually harm the plants and animals. Acids, okay? And if it is mixed with water, it is highly poisonous. This is also the reason why that it is not advisable to drink tap water. It is not advisable. Why? Because water, your tap water today, sad to say, is contaminated, whether you like it or not. They are contaminated. It is not potable. When I say potable, consumable or drinkable, no. You cannot actually drink that one because it contains a lot of pollutants, whether you like it or not. Or even though it actually um, goes into a lot of cycles, a lot of processes, but then again, we cannot actually trust those processes. Okay? Chlorination, sedimentation, oxidation, filtration, distillation, these are the processes that the water undergone. But we cannot um, justify that the pollutants will be removed in the process. It can actually mix all throughout. That is the reason why. Okay. Essential nutrients needed in plant growth are leached out in microorganisms that aid in decomposition and cycling of nutrients are killed. Remember? Okay, they are actually killed by this acid deposition. Okay, acid deposition weakens plant and make them vulnerable to diseases and pests. Pollutants also come in the form of chemical pesticides. See? Although chemical pesticides have helped us grow more food and fight infectious diseases in plants, many of these toxins persist in the environment and are transported to areas far from where they were applied. Okay. Application of pesticides is good for the plants just because it actually kills the pests. But if you're talking about the long-term effects, okay, it will be leached out in some areas, far areas, and it can affect a lot of plants and a lot of animals in the long run. Okay. These are harmful chemicals transported and passed on through food webs. Industrial revolution demanded so much energy that humans tap into untouched supply of fossil fuels. Take note, fossil fuels are used in factories, power plants, and cars, and started clogging the atmosphere with carbon dioxide. Okay, just like your oil deposits. Your oil deposits are actually one of the fossil fuels. When we actually consume fossil fuels, it creates carbon dioxide in the process. And this carbon dioxide are trapped in the atmosphere because plants cannot actually use them all because there are so many of them. That's the reason behind. And take note, carbon dioxide is one of the greenhouse gas that can cause greenhouse effect and of course global warming. Due to global warming, take note, it is predicted that the average global temperature will increase about 2 degrees Celsius, which is enough to significantly melt polar ice and raise the sea levels. This is not a domino effect. If there is a global warming or there is a greenhouse gas, tendency is it will create greenhouse effect. And of course, if there is greenhouse effect, there will be global warming. What are the effects of global warming? There are lots. Number one, melting of the ice in the polar region. If there is a melting of the ice in the polar region, tendency is there is a sea rise, a sudden sea rise, or raise of the sea levels. If there are some sea rise there, what will happen next? The salinity of the water will change, and a lot, take note, a lot of species of plants and animals living in the sea will eventually die. Sea, okay? Plants and animals, fishes. Okay. This is the reason behind there is a massive fish killings. What causes the massive fish killing is the sudden sea level rise, the changes of the salinity of water. If there are a lot of fishes or species of plants and animals that die because of this rising the sea levels, then it is you will not have food. And take note, most of the oxygen, this is not being discussed in other books, but I will discuss it to you. Most of the oxygen created are not in the land, but in the sea. Okay. It is actually created, or these are actually created by your what? Photosynthetic plants, which is actually located on the sea. They created more oxygen rather than in the land. Okay. Scientists have already observed and documented noticeable reductions in polar ice and thinning of the polar ice shelves. If you're going to look at it, where does the water go? Okay, it will eventually go to the sea. And again, starting to change the salinity of the sea. Are you familiar with salinity? Saline?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll put it in vernacular. Giparaton sa dagat. Okay? That is important. Why? Because these organisms are used to with that salinity. And changes of salinity will let their internal organ burst. That is the reason behind osmosis. We will discuss osmosis in our topic, I think. Okay. Osmotic osmoregulation, water regulation, osmosis. Let's move forward. Over time, heavily populated coastal areas will be flooded, and cities, even countries, will be submerged in water. Warming tends or could also alter rain patterns that can affect plant life and alter vast amounts of habitats. See? So this global warming tends to alter rain patterns, so we cannot actually predict. That is the reason behind. I thought this is I thought that the season now is rainy season, but it's so hot. That's the reason behind. We cannot actually predict patterns because of this global warming. Okay, and remember that these the plants that we have, some of them are seasonal. When we say seasonal, they can only survive in that particular climate or climatic condition. If there are some changes in the climatic condition, therefore, they will eventually die. That's the reason. So if they cannot adapt to the certain changes, what will happen? They will eventually die and replaced with a new organism that can actually adapt. What if there are again changes of the particular environment because of this global warming? They will also die. So tendency is a lot of the species can not survive with that particular changes of the environment or environmental conditions. Sustainable growth. Okay, I will discuss sustainable growth by next meeting, I think, because we only have 1 minute left. And again, reminding everybody to answer your activity number 4 today. I'll be expecting it today, right? It will actually end, or it will actually close today at 5 p.m. Right? By the way, please inform the offline students also that they need to have the report sheet or our performance tasks, right? MD and Margie, please inform them that even though they're offline students, they need to perform also, or they need to have the report sheet, which will be found in your LMS, which can be found in your LMS. All you have to do is to attach your
Yes,
report
sir.
sheets. I am still checking the offline as of the moment, okay? And I am now in the process of encoding your grades. Right? Do you have any questions so far?
None.
Sir.
Have you learned something out of our discussion? Have it enlightened your mind?
Yes.
Right, that's great. I think that will be all for today, class. Thank you for your participation. And again, I am hoping for your answers this afternoon. I'll be checking it one by one. Have a nice